Hello friends, my name is JJ, and apologies in advance for the low quality of this week's video. I am preparing for a big international trip right now, and as a result did not have the time to make one of my usual high quality videos with all of the jump cuts and popping up graphics and video game sound effects. But it is all worth it, because I have discovered this very exciting video on the internet that we are going to watch together. It is called Time Traveler Noah Reveals Future of Canada. So as you all know, I am very interested in Canadian affairs, so what could be more exciting than to get a glimpse of the future of Canada? I am hoping that his testimony from the future will help inform my analysis of the present, since it will be much easier to contextualize current events if we know what they're leading up to. So let's take a look at what he has to say.
I am Noah the Time Traveler. I am a time traveler from the year 2030, which is exactly 11 years in the future. I've came back to this time to tell you guys the truth about the future and everything you guys need to know.
Everything we need to know, so let us buckle up.
Today I'll be telling you guys the future of Canada. Yes, Canada goes through a lot of big changes in the future. And I would just like to tell you guys them because they are very shocking.
Very shocking. Get ready.
First things first, Canada actually merges with the United States and Mexico in the future to make one giant super country. And Canada acts as a type of district in this country.
This is very exciting, because it is my greatest dream, plus Mexico, come true.
I'm not lying, this is serious, that there's actually super countries in the future. How Ontario is to Canada right now is how Canada is to the super country in the future.
Okay, that's an interesting comment. How Ontario is to Canada right now is how Canada is to the future super country. So Ontario is Canada's largest province. It currently comprises like 40% of the Canadian population. So if Canada's role in the new super country is analogous to Ontario's role in Canada at present, I assume that means that Canada will comprise about 40% of the population of the new super country. So without even correcting for future population growth, the population of the new super country, combining America, Mexico, and Canada, will be approximately 500 million. And 40% of that would be approximately 200 million people. Canada presently has a population of what, about 36 million people? That means that we will gain approximately 164 million people over the next 11 years. Approximately 15 million new Canadians a year. That would basically be the equivalent of adding a new Ontario to Canada every year. Seems like a pretty big deal that I guess we should get prepared for, since that will presumably start kicking in any minute now. Or I suppose he was just making an analogy to Ontario's political and economic clout in Canada. So maybe Canada in the future will not necessarily be the largest district in the new super country, just the most politically and economically dominant in some fashion. That seems like a pretty grim diagnosis for America and Mexico, becoming second bananas to Canada in only 11 years. Anyway, let's keep watching.
There are several super countries everywhere, and most of them are in the process of merging into one even bigger country. The border between Canada and the United States basically acts like nothing anymore. Since they are basically merged together, anyone in the United States could go over to Canada.
This is actually a good thing. I'm actually encouraged by this development in the future. I think an open border between Canada and the US would be a really good thing.
And Canada's population actually increases amazingly due to the fact that once global warming, which is a really big issue in the future, starts impacting it, it makes the south area of Canada more hotter, while northern up in Canada it's more of a normal temperature.
Interesting, we do actually get an explanation of why Canada's population will increase by 164 million people in only 11 years. Basically, global warming makes the northern part of Canada habitable. Right now it is some of the least habitable parts of the country.
The population of Canada in the year 2030 is 44 million because of this.
Okay, so we do finally have some closure on the population question. Canada's population in the year 2030 will be 44 million. That is not anywhere close to being 40% of the combined population of Canada, America, and Mexico, which means that for Canada to be the Ontario of the new super country, I guess just means that it will be politically and economically dominant. Since Canada's population is about 36 million right now, to get to 44 million by 2030 only requires a growth of 8 million. 8 million people over the course of 11 years is a pretty serious number, but that doesn't really exceed what the government is estimating. We can see that on the Statistics Canada website, they say, according to selected scenarios, there would be between 40.1 and 47.7 million people in Canada by 2036. So basically, our friend is telling us that the future actually unfolds in a rather predictable way. Perhaps the fact that northern Canada becomes more habitable does not actually affect migration patterns that much, which I guess makes sense because, the north doesn't really have a lot of big cities right now, so that would be a lot of development to occur in a pretty short period of time.
People in the future that live in Canada mostly live in the 4 super cities: Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and Calgary.
Okay, so this reaffirms my previous suspicion. There is not, in fact, significant population redistribution in Canada over the next 11 years. The majority of Canada's population right now lives in these 4 super cities, so clearly not much changes.
These cities are basically super cities. They're huge, they're very developed. Trust me, it's something you guys would love to see.
Very developed, he says. Kind of a sick burn to, I suppose, the current underdeveloped rat holes that are Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and Calgary.
Hardly any people even live up north towards the rural area in the future of Canada.
Okay. So, I'm having a little bit of trouble keeping my friend's story here. He said that global warming changes settlement patterns in Canada, and a lot of people live in the north in the future. Hold on, let's go back to that part. What does he say?
And Canada's population actually increases amazingly due to the fact that once global warming, which is a really big issue in the future, starts impacting it, it makes the south area of Canada more hotter, while northern up in Canada it's more of a normal temperature.
So due to the fact, he says, due to the fact of global warming and the fact that settlement increases in northern Canada, the population was supposed to increase. But he also says that the population distribution in Canada basically stays the same over the course of the next 11 years, and there is in fact no significant migration to the north. I'm a little bit confused here from our future friend who is speaking in somewhat cryptic riddles. I mean, he is from the future, so I shouldn't second guess him.
As I've said in previous videos, there is a global currency that can be used anywhere in the world. This includes Canada. So Canada is using one of the most main currencies in the future that everyone else is using.
So that's good. I'm glad that Canada of the future is choosing to obey currency law. Glad that we use the denomination of money that is recognized as valid. I mean, considering that there is not really any Canada in the future and that we're part of the new super country, it would seem really weird if Canada was determining currency policy one way or another. I mean, Ontario does not use its own currency, and nor would we expect it to, so it shouldn't be that newsworthy that Canada is using the currency of the larger country that it is part of. But, it is important for him to clarify these sorts of things because, he is from the future and perhaps he has forgotten the way things work 11 years ago.
Canada offers a free chip in your right hand for healthcare that actually can help you. Like if you're in an emergency, a doctor can quickly scan it and get all the information about you. It's implanted in the right arm, always.
So Canadian healthcare will clearly make great strides in the next 11 years. It is in fact one of the sort of common criticisms of the Canadian medical system right now, how difficult it is to transfer medical data, even from, one doctor to another or one hospital to another. So it's nice to know that this hand chip technology really makes things a lot more efficient. I mean, I would agree with the efficiency that the hand chip system would bring, but I think that the physical imposition of the hand chip system would be somewhat contentious, but maybe he'll get into that.
And you can also get a brain chip, although it's pretty much costly. It can make your brain expand 6 times in function.
So the brain chip makes your brain expand 6 times in function, which seems good, but I also think that's a little bit of government nanny state gone mad. I don't really know if the government has a vested interest in making its citizens 6 times smarter. Although he did say it was pretty much costly. So maybe that's not part of the public system. Maybe Canada in the future has a 2-tiered medical system in which the public system gives you the hand chip, but then the private system gives you the brain chip. I can see that being a contentious public policy debate in the future. The idea that the moneyed elite are all getting their brain chips. I'm sure that the left wing of the future will be very big into the socialized brain chips for all policy.
In the future, 2028, aliens actually arrive on Earth. Yes, I'm telling the truth. Aliens arrive on Earth in 2028. However, these aliens land in Northern Europe, Northern Asia, and Antarctica.
Snubbed again. First we don't get the Olympics in Toronto, and now this?
But they do speak with the Canadian Prime Minister.
Well, thank God for that.
I can't say who the Prime Minister of Canada is in the future due to paradoxes though.
Lame.
However, the Prime Minister of Canada in the future is greatly influenced by artificial intelligence, also known as AI.
The Prime Minister of Canada of the future is greatly influenced by artificial intelligence. I don't know about you, but right now I'd settle for a Prime Minister who's just influenced by actual intelligence.
That's all I have to say about Canada right now. But in my next video, I'm doing something different. I'm actually going to take a paper and sketch out the aliens from the future. Yes, I'm going to sketch what the aliens from the future look like so you guys can see for yourselves. I'm not the best drawer, but I can probably show you guys to an extent what they look like.
Okay. I'm a little bit frustrated by this, I have to confess, my friends. He cannot tell us the name of the future Canadian Prime Minister because paradoxes, and yet he can show us what the aliens who land on Earth in 2028, 9 years from now, that seems more paradoxical to me. I am frankly very interested in who winds up leading this country in the next couple of years because he or she will presumably push a great deal of very consequential legislation in a very short period of time. I mean, let's just review. Over the next 11 years, we are going to merge with Mexico and the US. We are going to opt in to some sort of global currency system that does not currently exist. And we are going to implement sweeping hand chip policy to modernize the healthcare system. We are also going to be dramatically affected by global warming, although it will not affect Canadian settlement patterns. I mean, he didn't really say that the aliens do much, so I'm not really convinced that that is really the most pressing information that we need. I mean, I'm sure they're fine, they're probably just sort of bug-looking creatures, but I want to know who the politician that is going to rise to power in this country in, the next decade and bring about all of these sweeping changes. So I have to say, Time Traveler Noah, I'm a little bit disappointed as to where your priorities are. So I think we can all agree that Time Traveler Noah has merely raised more questions than answers about the future of Canada. I mean, I don't want to be too hard on him because I'm sure it was very difficult for him to travel from 11 years in the future, and I think we should be appreciative that he shared any facts from the future at all. I don't know why he blurred out his face. Maybe that has something to do with the paradox as well. Paradox that is not undermined by him showing us what the aliens look like, which again seems somewhat odd, but who am I to second guess the future? Anyway, in the comments below, I want to hear your take on these somewhat grim, somewhat optimistic visions for the future of Canada. Maybe you can put his testimony into greater coherence or context than I've been able to. I'm also curious to hear your predictions about what you think Canada will be like in the year 2030. I mean, they will just be idle speculation. They won't have the weight of Noah's testimony, which is actually from the future. But I think that people that are sufficiently educated and informed about current events in the present can offer predictions for the future that are persuasive and believable. If you're not sufficiently educated about the trends of the present, however, then your predictions for the future will just be a lot of ignorant, incoherent nonsense. And I think we can all agree that that kind of stuff is just very cringy and embarrassing. I will see you all next week.